We'll get going, and like you said, we'll run this one through. So Dane began surveying in 2005. Loved the ability to be outdoors. Loved the historical research, the mathematic uh, computations, and meeting with landowners. Got his LSI in 2007. Became an LS in the state of Maine in '09, and has now not only licensed in Maine but also Vermont, Texas, Colorado, and Oregon. Gained over 15 years of experience. Let's see, probably more than that now. And working not only in different states, but also in different disciplines from residential, commercial, ALTAs, the energy sectors, transportation, construction. Dane is currently a professional surveyor for Colorado Department of Transportation. And he enjoys not only land surveying, but enjoys his passion for teaching, which is why he's been a staple for us on Mentoring Mondays and everything associated with helping you pass the FS exam. So, as always, we love your time and dedication and resources that you create for everybody trying to come up through the next generation. So, as always, I appreciate your time. Love it, Dane.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm gonna tell you today, audience, is stuff that I learned from probably the master of this, and his name is Knut Hermansen up in Maine.
Very
He's a
much so.
professor at the University of Maine. Um, he's an engineer, a surveyor. He has a doctorate degree. He's a lawyer, cancer survivor, Marine, marathon runner. So the guy's he's a top-notch guy to say the least. But anyway, he gives courses at the University of Maine, and his big focus in the survey world is the legal aspects of things, and this is where I gained a lot of my knowledge. Not nearly what he has, but so a lot of this stuff is in my manual as well, and I just wanted to try to compile it in a concise way. Again, really focusing on the big hit points and the key topics, stuff that you would see on the FS exam. So that's what we'll be doing. All right. Um, so the big thing here, throughout the theme throughout all of this is grantor and grantees. Okay, the grantor is the one that sells to a grantee. That's where your rights and the transfer of title is going to travel from grantor to grantee. The big thing here is the grantor is going to be held liable and is responsible for the accuracy of legal descriptions and the intent of that legal descriptive document. Okay. So if there are any ambiguities in that legal description, it is going to be the blame is going to be placed on the grantor, not the grantee. It's the grantor's responsibility to get the wording and the intent correct, and then it's transferred to the grantee. If there are ambiguities that arise, and things are taken to the next level and to a courtroom, the judge is going to err on the side of the grantee as opposed to the grantor, because again, it's the grantor's responsibility to get it right. So if they didn't, then they're going to err on the side of the grantee. Okay, does everyone understand that? That's a big point. And if you just know that one fact, a lot of things kind of fall into place when you know that. For instance, you have to have the grantor sign the deed, but you don't necessarily have to have the grantee signing the deed. And that's because the grantor is saying, I'm taking responsibility for this. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make that point clear up front. Now, types of interests. You can have rights and you can have interest in land, fee interest in land. Here's a list of the topics or the types, and we're going to go into depth on these, but I just wanted to kind of list them out here. The two main categories are possessory versus non-possessory. So with possessory, your interest is going to be fee. It's going to be within the land itself. You're going to own something. Okay. With non-possessory, you don't necessarily own something. You're just allowed to use it or not use it for many different circumstances or situations. Okay. But one you own, one you do not own. You're kind of with the non-possessory, you're kind of leaning on someone else that owns the land. They might let you use it or not use it for certain reasons, but it is not owned by you. You just have the right to use it. So this is fee interest. These non-possessory are rights. All right, fee. These are the possessory ones. Um, fee comes from the word fief, which in the Middle Ages you had your ruling monarch. That ruling monarch owned the kingdom. They owned everything. No one else owned anything. But that monarch would give regions or districts or villages or whatever they would call them to their lords. And then those lords would distribute chunks of that land to the serfs and servants to work the land for whatever purpose, whether it was raising animals or crops. And then they would generate revenue or a product. And then that product and that revenue would then go to the lord, who would then give it to the monarch. Okay. That system is the feudal system. And within the feudal system, you had fief, which is land granted to a servant in exchange for labor or services. So, they were allowed to live on the land, use the land, but it was not theirs. Okay. Um, and so that's where the term fee comes from. Okay. The types of fee, the main types, you got fee simple absolute. That's the best. That's the one where you own your land. You can do what you want with it. You can sell what you want to whoever you want. You can do anything you want with it. It's yours. There's no encumbrances. There's no conditions, covenants, stipulations. It's yours outright, free and simple. Okay. Um, that's what everyone wants, but that's not what everyone always gets. There's fee simple to feasible, and that is voided on certain expressed conditions. So what does that mean? So I can sell Joe some property, but in the deed to Joe, I can say, Joe, I'm selling you this property, but if I ever see you riding a motorcycle again, the property is coming back to me. Okay. And I actually use that example because I've seen that in a deed. I don't know why, but it may have been like a father who didn't want his son riding motorcycles because the other son died or something. But you can stipulate whatever you want in a deed. You can say you have to be able to ride a unicycle within 3 months of the sale of this land to you. And if you don't ride a motorcycle within 3 months or a unicycle, then that land's going to go back to the grantor. The key here is if the grantee, the one buying the land, agrees to it, however ridiculous or hard or difficult or simple it is, then they're going to be held to that standard, to that stipulation. So you can kind of critique, not really critique, you can stipulate what you want in a deed to the grantee. And if they're willing to accept that stipulation, then the sale can go through. All right. So obviously that's not quite as absolute and simple as fee simple absolute. The next one's fee tail. May only pass to a specifically expressed grantee, heirs. So land is only transferable to the natural born children, not the adopted children. That's the example. So this one, you aren't stipulated to your ownership in order to do a condition, but you are told when you buy the land, you're told who you can sell it to. And that can be as strict or as loose as the grantor chooses. They can say stuff like this. Nope, you can only, if I'm selling you this land, you can only sell it to your natural born children. Okay. Um, so you're limited to who you can sell that land to in the future. And if you're willing to accept those terms, then you can buy it. If you're thinking, no, I want to be able to sell it to whoever I want. What if I get a new job and want to move to New Jersey? Well, this is not the piece of land for you, right? Okay. And
Hey,
then the last,
Dane,
yes,
on that
yeah,
same one, we've got a couple of court cases going on in Las Vegas because they were golf courses and they were stipulated in the deed that they had to been used for golf courses for at least 50 years.
yeah,
And so they thought they could buy it and win their way through court. But at the moment, actually, there's three now that I think about it. There's three separate incidences where they've people come in and bought all the golf course land thinking that they could
develop it.
use it, yeah, use it and develop it any way they wanted. And
Yep.
they've been in litigation for shit, some
I,
of them 10 or 15 years now. So
I have no pity on them.
yep.
When they signed that deed, they knew that's what it was made for, and if they were willing to accept those terms, that's on them. So,
Right. Yep. So there's a
I,
good there's a good example when it comes to that one. Yep.
yeah, yeah. If any of y'all in this talk want to share story, because back to Knut Hermanson, the way he would teach was through absolutely hilarious stories, and they were all true, and they were all very entertaining. And I know what estoppel is for the rest of my life because of the story, and I'm about to tell y'all. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, if y'all have any stories, please share. Last one is life estate. So during the grantee's natural life. So this is when let's say a son has a 70-year-old mother and she was newly widowed. Okay. And he says, Mom, I'm gonna sell you my a chunk of my ranch that you can live on, but I want it back upon your death. So the land is the mother's. She can do with it what she wants. However, when she passes away, that piece of land that was deeded to her is going to go back to the son. It reverts back to the son. So it is there for her natural life, and then it's going to become the son's again. Okay. So these are the four main type. I do want to throw out here that there are a bunch of little caveats and there are a bunch of little subcategories, but these are the main possessory types. And if y'all have any other comments on that now or later, feel free to let me know. But these are the main categories, and then within these and outside of these, there are several others. Okay, they're really real specific type, or yeah, I don't want to say rare, but they're on that level. Okay. All right, so that was possessory. Non-possessory, you have your easements, covenants, license, profit, pendra. I'm going to just say pendra this whole talk. It looks French to me. And then embellments. All right, an easement. This is probably the most common what we think of when we think of non-possessory. This is when one landowner allows another individual or individuals to utilize their land for a specific reason. Okay. They're not giving them a piece of land. They're just saying, hey, you can use this strip of land for your airport runway, or you can use this strip of land to access your back acreage. Okay. Um, it's a right to use another's land. You're not owning it. You can never own it. You can't do what you want on it and put a house on it, but you can use it for that reason. And we're going to go into easements more specifically. A covenant, that's a promise concerning land. An example of a covenant would be I don't have any on top of my head, but like you can tell someone you can use this piece of land and you can camp on it, if you stack wood for me at the beginning of winter every year. Okay. So you can make that kind of arrangement with someone. And so now the person can go camping, but they made a promise that they were going to stack your firewood every year for you come March. Okay. Um, a license is a privilege to use another's land. It's unlike an easement because no interest is given, only permission. So the main difference between a license and an easement, it's kind of on the same lines. It's just a right to use someone's land, but a license can easily be revoked as opposed to an easement. If you tell someone as with an easement, yes, you can use this 25-foot strip of land to access your house. You can't revoke that. Okay. You can't just one day say, nope, I'm going to stop letting you use it. Now you can't access your house back there. Sorry. Okay. But with a license, you can. A license can be revoked. An easement can't be. To revoke an easement, you would have to go to the landowner. They would have to agree to it too, because it's their right. You can't take their right away from them, even though they don't own the land. They own the right. Okay. Profit Pindra, that's the right to remove material. So this is you can think of it like a mining agreement. Um, you can say, hey, you can access my ranch, you can dig holes looking for gold, you can do whatever you want um, for maybe a price or maybe a portion of the profit that they extract. Okay. And then embellments, the right to use an annual crop. So this is when you have a lot of acreage, and you tell someone, yeah, you can go, you can plant all the potatoes you want, but uh, um, once those potatoes are harvested, you got to get out of here. And you can also make a stipulation. I want half the profit from the potatoes, or I want a set amount of money for those potatoes. Or you can just be a nice person and say, you can, yeah, go ahead and use it, but when you're done, you're done. Okay. Um, so again, this is not all the non-possessory, but these are the main type. And I just want to go over them. Let's get into easements more specifically. And feel free to ask questions. Trent, stop me if you have any raised hands or whatever.
Yes, sir.
All right. Rights are not granted. Sorry, rights are granted, not title. So again, you have the right to use the land, but you do not own it. A very good example of this up in Maine, there are these tons of snowmobile trails all over Maine. And there's this massive network, and it's a big money maker for the state. People come from all over New England to go ride these snowmobile trails all throughout the state of Maine. It's like its own little transportation highway during the wintertime. People set up little shops and stores along the way. You can stop and ice fish at lakes. It's a really cool experience. But some people love the idea of this, and some people absolutely hate it because they have snowmobiles driving up and down their back pasture all winter long. The noise can get out of hand, this and that, right? Some people hated it so much that they went and they complained about it. And they went to court. It was a huge deal in the state of Maine. They went to court, and it came back that the snowmobile trails were not allowed to have snowmobiles on them. Some people were furious, some people were happy. Okay. So this entire network, you would think it got shut down, but what they had to do was the people that did agree with it, they allowed people still to come, the people that didn't. So the trail network got a lot smaller, but it still does exist, and it's still a big thing. But what I'm getting at here is in Maine, this is a perfect example of what easements are, because easements have a location and they have a purpose. You have to state what the easement is going to be used for, and you have to state where it is on your land. Okay. So if you look at my pencil paper, here's your property, and you have a pipeline running through your land. Okay. So you allow a pipeline company to place a pipeline on your property at this location. And the purpose of it is for the construction, maintenance, and transportation of liquid natural gas. Okay. So the location is right here. And the purpose is for liquid natural gas, maintenance, repair, installation, inspection. You got to write all the stuff that you're going to want to do to that pipeline now and in the future. So an easement has to have two things, a location and a purpose. The deal with those snowmobile trails, they were really old easement deeds. And in the easement, it clearly said where the trail was, but the purpose said for horse-drawn carriage. It said nothing about snowmobiles. So the location was good, but the purpose was meant for horse-drawn carriages. They were drafted in the early 1800s. Now people were moved to using them with snowmobiles, which is not what the easement said. So that's why they were not allowed to do it. So that's a perfect example of why an easement, the validity of an easement lies within its location and purpose. Now back to location. Location can be kind of crappy sometimes. I've seen plenty of easement deeds in Texas for pipelines that just say over and across the lands owned by Smith, which means that's a blanket easement. It doesn't say, is the pipeline here or here or here? It just says across the lands of Smith. It's blanket in nature, is what they say. It's still valid because it does locate the easement on the land of Smith, but it doesn't tell you specifically where, but it does meet the requirement. That method of doing is pretty obsolete now, but it is a valid way of saying it across my land. Okay. It doesn't say where, doesn't say with, nothing. Okay. All right. So I want to drive that in. Location and purpose. Those are two elements that are needed for an easement. And here are the characteristics of easements. We can go through those really quick. An interest in land that must be created by grant or agreement. So you have to write this thing down. You have to express it in order for it to be valid. Sometimes they are not written down, and that's going to be an implied easement. We can get into that later. Interest must be on the land of another. It can't be on your land. You can't give yourself the right to drive on your land. Of course you can drive on your land. It's your land. You have all the rights to it already. So it has to be on someone else's land. An easement is non-possessory. We already went over that. And the privilege to use an easement must be capable of creation. So what does this mean? Kind of goes back to the purpose. The privilege to use an easement must be capable of creation. So you have to be able to create the easement through its location and its purpose. You have to have those two elements for it to be valid. And it must be described, which that really ties back into the location. Again, that description can be pretty crappy. You can just say, hey, over and above my land. Doesn't have to be too specific. The more specific you are, the better, but it doesn't have to be. Now we're going to types of easements. Two main types, appurtenant and engross, easement engross. Appurtenant easements are easements that are attached to the land. So if I sell a piece of land, back to my paper, pencil and paper. If I have a piece of land and I draft up an easement and I say the eastern 50 feet of my property can be used for vehicle entrance and exit, egress and ingress to the parcel of land owned by Smith to my north. Okay, so this is my land, and I'm allowing Smith to drive a car over the east 50 feet of my property. Smith does not own this land. He can't go put houses on it, but he should have a clear, easy way to egress and ingress out of his land. Okay. So the easement is attached to the land up here. If Smith sells the land to someone else, that easement doesn't go with Smith. It's gonna stay here and be used for this piece of property. So this easement is attached to the land. Okay. Easement in gross, I can say in that deed, hey, I'm selling Joe Bob Smith a 50-foot wide easterly strip of land across my property for Smith's use only. So now when Smith sells this land and he moves and he sells it to Pete, Pete does not have the right to use this because the easement was attached to Smith, not Pete. So that's an example of easement in gross. Okay. Does everyone understand those two differences? Now back to a pertinent easement. A pertinent easement is the one that's attached to the land. In this case, this appurtenant easement, not attached to Smith, but just attached to the property up here, whoever owns it. There's a dominant track and there's a servient track. The dominant track is the track that's going to benefit from this easement. The servient track is the track that's going to be hindered or burdened or encumbered by the easement. So in this case, the land up here is going to benefit from this easement. It's going to be the dominant track. This piece of property is going to be burdened by that easement because now landowner A, he can't park his tractors and put fences and do all kinds of stuff to block the way for whoever owns this land to get up into and out of. So he's going to be hindered or encumbered. This is going to be the servient track. The servient track is not benefited. The dominant track is benefited. Okay. Easements can be given to pretty much anyone that you specify in that deed. Okay. They can be given to the entire public. For instance, this happens a lot like in Maine and Hawaii. No one can own a beach. There are public easements across every beach in the state of Hawaii. You can own right up to the beach, but you cannot own the beach or stop other people from using that beach. Okay. That's a public easement. Everyone has access and everyone can utilize the beaches of Hawaii. No one can own a beach. Private, you can limit. You can say, I only want the Smith family to be able to use this easement. Or I only want the residents of Jeffco of Jefferson County to be able to use this easement. Okay, that's kind of public, but it does limit everyone else that's not from from Jefferson County, right? So that's the difference, public and private. You can limit it to one person if you want. If they're willing to accept it, you can do that. Positive versus negative easements. A good example of this is the Capitol building here in Denver, Colorado. There is a negative easement associated with the Capitol building in Denver. They want to be able to see from the Capitol building steps, they want to be able to see the mountains towards the west. Okay. So there's an easement in place, an aerial easement that prevents anybody from building skyscrapers or anything that can obstruct that view of the mountains from the Denver Capitol building. That's a negative easement. The Capitol building is not saying they want to use the land of all these people in line out to the mountains. They're saying we don't want the people that own their own land to be able to use their own land. Okay. So if you own a parcel of land and want to build a 13-story skyscraper, but it's in that corridor that's mapped out, you can't do it if it's going to be a certain height. And it's a pretty weird easement, because the closer you are to the Capitol building, the higher, I'm sorry, the shorter your buildings can be. If you were 3 miles away from the Capitol building, you probably could build a 10-story high building because it won't obstruct the view. Does that make sense? So that's an example of a negative easement. It's preventing the use of someone else on their own land. In this situation, the encumbered, the dominant and servient switch places, if you think about it. All right.
Yeah,
Now, positive. I'm sorry.
George threw in there, and I was about to say the same thing, but those are very common around airports, right? For landing
Oh yeah,
zones and that kind of stuff. So very similar as a
yeah,
view obstruction easement versus, landing zones and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
yeah. That's another good example. I'm actually
Yep.
I'm doing a survey on a property out in Salida, and the guy's all ticked off at me because he can't do subdivision development on his own land because it's within a certain radii of the airport.
Yep.
And I had to give him the bad news, and he's told me, well, we can't just not put that on the plat. I was like, yeah, you can, but I'm not signing it. So, but
George also said Lake Tahoe views, so they're protecting the views around Lake Tahoe as well. So
yeah,
there's
yep.
there's lots of view obstruction easements around some popular type.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
yep. I bet you like Statue of Liberty's got stuff,
Yep.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on.
There's a
And
lot
then
of we have some subdivisions built in the mountains, kind of cut into the mountains here as well, and we have those view obstructions as well. So.
yeah, yep. So those are negative easements. And then positive easements are what we just discussed. That's the the entrance and exit driveway of someone's property. Okay. That's on the property, and so now you've kind of flipped back to that servient and dominant. So easement description types, description of dominant parcel. You have to describe the dominant parcel, you have to describe the servient parcel, and the easement itself. So these are the 3 types. So number 3, easement itself. That's saying, let's go back to that 50-foot wide strip along the eastern boundary of parcel A. Okay. So it's a 50-foot wide strip along parcel A's east line. All right. That's describing the easement itself. Description of the servient parcel. So you could say, hey, that's basically what I'm trying to get at here is kind of like that's a blanket easement description. That's saying the easement is on parcel A. We don't know where, but it's on parcel A. Then description of the dominant parcel describes the land that it's going to. So you could write an easement that says over the lands of A to the lands of B. All right. Assumption here. If you do not specify what part of that easement in a description, it's assumed that you're going to the center of it, just like any other type of monument. if you call for Henderson Creek as your northern line, it's going to be assumed that you're going to go to the center of Henderson Creek. You're not going to go to the edge of Henderson Creek. You're not going to go to the opposite opposing edge of Henderson Creek. You're going to go to the center line of Henderson Creek, wherever that may be. Depending on where you at, could be the thread or the Thalweg, or is it navigable, not navigable? But at the end of the day, you're going to the center of it. This goes back to the grantor's responsibility. If the grantor wanted to sell everything up to the edge of Henderson Creek, but not the water itself, well, then he or she should have said that when they described the land. If they just say Henderson Creek, well, then it's going to go to the center of it, and the person's going to get half that water. Okay. All right.
Like, can I ask you a question really fast? Sorry. Is that
Yeah.
like across the board, no matter what state you're in, it's always going to be assumed that it goes
I
to the
don't,
center?
yeah, I don't want to make that generalized statement. I don't know all 50 states, but I
Well,
do
Texas.
know I would feel pretty confident making that general statement that if you don't specify, and this goes to monuments too, if you say to the rock outcrop, well,
Mhm.
you probably should survey in the perimeter of the rock pile or the outcropping, and you're going to be going to the geographic center of that. You're not going to go to the edge of it, right? So,
Yeah,
um, and the same thing with iron rebar. You're not going to the side of the rebar. You're going to the center of the rebar. If you
sure.
say Highway 9, that if you don't say to the easterly right-of-way line of Highway 9, then you're going to be going to the center line of Highway 9. Okay. Um, I could be someone on here could be from Wisconsin and they're having a heart attack right now, but um, that's my general assumption.
That's
Okay.
Jerry.
Thank you.
That's Jerry.
Yeah, that's me having a heart attack.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta be careful because when you're going like when you're calling out street lines and stuff, it depends also on whether it exists as an easement or as a fee simple, and also whether you're dealing with a simultaneously created parcel or sequentially created parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that's jurisdictional type of stuff also.
Okay.
So yeah, and the other thing you got to keep in mind is like when you did say a thing about going to the center of the pipe and that, or to the center of the rock pile, if there is no other indication on that otherwise that was intended otherwise, then yeah, you would go to the geometric center. For instance, if you had a punch mark on the top of a rebar or a rebar, the presumption is the punch mark is therefore, even if it's off center, it's meant to be that as opposed to the dead center of the. So it's one of these things. It always depends.
Yep.
Right?
No, I
Always
totally agree.
depends.
Yep. You always have these caveats, and it really does boil down to the intent in that deed and all that extrinsic evidence, like you're saying. That punch mark is extrinsic evidence. It doesn't say in the deed, to the punch mark on the 3 1/4 inch aluminum cap, blah blah blah. You get out there and it's common report, it's common knowledge that the punch mark is going to be where the intended monument is. Okay. So types of encumbrances on title, I just want to say, even if you own your own land, okay, absolute fee simple, the best kind. You don't have a right, you have an interest. You own that land. You can still have encumbrances on that title. If you have debt that's not paid, for instance, your mortgage, that's probably the biggest one we got. If you don't pay your taxes, you can have a mechanics lien. You can have a statutory lien. There's all kinds of things that can encumber your title. You may think you live in America and you're scot-free, but there's all kinds of things that can come up if you're not doing your part as a good citizen, or whatever the case may be, where you can be encumbered. Okay. So you think you're living in Iowa, and then all of a sudden you realize you're in China. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
George threw in there about when going over easements, you can't grant an easement over something you don't own, and so just
Yeah.
bringing that part back up too. So
Yeah, I that's one of the characteristics. An interest in land that must be created.
there you go.
Wait, no, oh yeah, must be on on the land of another. Right. So yeah, it's kind of different than this. You're right, George. Like you can't give someone a right if you don't have the right yourself,
Right.
right? So
Wait,
kind of,
I'm so sorry. Is there going to be a more of a Q&A? I've got a question about that.
yeah.
But
Go for
I
it.
can hold off until, okay.
No.
So there's a situation that came up today where the grantor and the grantee are the same entity. And they've essentially granted each other um the rights to access for construction or maintenance purposes, and they've given each other 3 feet from a property line, say, to a building, and vice versa, right? um Both of them are encroaching over the same. It's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen the grantor and the grantee be the same one granting each other access to their own and it's a perpetual um
Well, maybe
easement.
the only thing I could think of right off the top of my head would be like, let's say you need a 30-foot wide driveway, okay, between these two properties, and they can each give 15 feet to the other person if that other person gives them 15 feet. So something kind of like, I don't know
No,
for
it's like Joe is the grantor, Joe is the grantee, and Joe is saying to Joe that he has the right to
wait, same,
build and maintain over his own property, but
same
it's 2 feet, or sorry, 3 feet, but there's only 2 feet between them. So that means everyone's encroaching, but it's still all Joe's.
Joe is the same person, or are there two different Joes?
No, it's the
It-
same person, it's the
Is,
same
don't-
entity.
is it an appurtenant easement or an easement in gross?
It's I do not know.
'Cause
That's
if
what
it's
I'm
a
trying.
Yeah, because if it's an appurtenant easement, it belongs to the person. If I mean, it belongs to it runs with the land. If it's an easement in gross and it belongs to a person, and a person can convey that easement to a subsequent party. Now, again, depending on the jurisdiction that you're in Wisconsin, for example, you can't grant yourself an easement.
No, no, you can't.
And the example like Dane was getting at there with the two driveways next door, if they grant each other an easement, and then one of those people buys the other land, that easement automatically extinguishes in Wisconsin because you can't have an easement over your own property to yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not on your
That's what
jurisdiction. So,
right. And so one of these properties is being sold. And so but there's the language in there says it's perpetual. So that's where we're all kinds of confused. It's like,
yeah,
wait,
it's
some,
only perpetual in the context of the legal rights that it can exist. It can't exist outside that legal right. So if it's extinguished automatically because you can't have an easement over yourself, then that doesn't exist to convey to the next party unless as part of the conveyance he recreates that easement.
okay.
And I've never seen it where the grantee and the grantor is the same person.
Yeah,
I've never seen that before. That's what just completely
Almost,
threw.
I almost want to. It
Mm.
almost feels to me like it's not even a valid document.
Well,
Like
yeah,
that.
is there a joint tenancy involved on one side and a
That's
sole
the only thing.
proprietorship
No,
on the other?
Oh,
it's not.
no, I don't know.
That was the other way it could come apart. Or or if he's got an LLC associated with that name.
There's an LLC. There's an LLC. But it's a identical. It's an identical LLC granting. It's like as a grantor and grantee, but they're again, it's one of them is being sold, and so it's just this weird loophole, and we're trying to figure out how to work
Oh, Jesus.
with
Oh,
that. Yeah.
If there was a lawyer involved with this, poke him with a stick.
I know. I mean, honestly, it's like it literally is it's a loop. It's a loop and a loop. A loop. The language is people probably just get so sick of reading this loop that they just say, okay, forget it. We can't move through it.
I was gonna say maybe when we get to the end, if you're able to dig that up and you can share your screen, we might be able to
Yeah, of
kind of help at
course.
the
Of
end.
course.
Okay. All right,
Sure.
cool. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Sweet.
All right. Methods of transfer. So all methods of transfer should, I think probably I would even say have to involve statute of frauds. And this is, well, no, not all transfer of land. And we're going to go through all the different unwritten rights. Okay. But written rights will all fall under the statutes of frauds, which is a form of statute requiring that contracts be memorialized in writing, signed by the party against whom they are to be enforced, with sufficient content to evidence the contract. So basically what this is saying is a grantor needs to draft up in writing what they want to sell and sign it. And then the grantee either accepts or does not accept that contract. But what a deed is, it's a contract to sell the land in writing. So anything written up is going to fall into this statute of frauds. Okay. But that's not the only way land can be transferred. You can transfer land through unwritten means. And the examples that we're going to be going through are listed right here. Okay. I love this statement. What is a matter of law? Where is a matter of survey? If you keep this in mind, you can answer a lot of questions on your own just by knowing this statement. What is a matter of law? Where is a matter of survey? I don't care who the grantor is. It could be Snoopy for all I care. Okay. All I care about in that deed is what is being described. I just care where it is on the planet. I don't care who's buying it. I don't care who's selling it. I don't care what purpose they're selling it for, what stipulations they put in place. Those are all things I can notify the landowners of, but they're not my responsibility. The only thing I'm responsible for is where is this land on the earth? What is the size of it? What is the acreage of it? What are the dimensions of it? Okay. What it is a matter of law. Where it is a matter of survey. So let's go through these quickly. These types of unwritten rights. This is how you can obtain land or lose land without statute of frauds being put in place. The first one, the big one, is adverse possession. The elements of adverse possession are right here, the 6 elements. Actual possession, which means you have to actually own the land. So there's going to be 2 people involved in adverse possession. The person that owns the land and the person or persons that are using the land that may gain interest or rights of that land. Okay. So individual A is the record owner of the land, and they have to, let me see. Oh yeah. Actual possession. Record owner and adverse possessor cannot simultaneously possess the land. So A cannot be using the land at the same time that B is using the land. Okay. Let's say B lives over here and there's a nice tree grove right here. And B, over the years, has just started using this northeast quarter or northeast corner of A's land. Okay. B just decides to start using this area. He's got a picnic table. His family goes out there. They start having picnics. Everything's fine. All right. B is going to be using this land. And A owns it, but he is not using the land. If A decides to go through these trees and starts picnicking there with his family too, adverse possession is not going to occur. Okay. B is only using it. A is not using it. Second, statutory period. This situation has to occur for a set amount of time. Every state's got their own statutory time period. I have a slide here that shows them. The lighter you are, the less time you have to utilize. B can utilize the land for less amount of time. Louisiana, you have to use the land of another for a long time before it can be potentially yours. Montana, California, these lighter states, Arkansas, it's pretty a short period of time, 5 to 7 years. Louisiana, New Jersey, Maine, you're looking at 16 to 30 years you have to use the land. Every state's different. Okay. That's the statutory time period. Next is open and notorious. Possession is noticeable to the record owner. It's not hidden. So B is not hiding the fact that he's using this land. He's got his picnic table there. He's got his barbecue grill there. He's not hiding from A. He's basically telling A, hey, I'm using your land over here. Okay. That's open and notorious. Exclusive. The possessor, B, he not only is he using the land, he's restricting other people from using it. Let's say they had landowner C over here. One day, C walks over and he starts using the picnic table, and B runs out his back door and starts yelling at him, hey, that's my picnic table. You can't use that. Go on, get out of here. So not only is B using A's land, he's stopping other people from using A's land. That's exclusivity. Next is hostile. This sounds bad, but it's the possessor takes action to prevent record owner from access. So he may put up a fence on the other side of this tree grove here, stopping A from using his own land. Okay. He might put post-it signs up, do not enter, no trespassing. Okay. And A feels like he cannot access his own northeast corner of land. And then lastly is claim of title. The possessor has a good faith claim like color of title. So this entire time we thought B was being a nuisance to the area, using A's land, stopping C, putting up signs, putting up fences, all that stuff. But in reality, this is the key. B really thinks he owns this piece of land. Maybe his deed description is pretty vague in this area, and he thinks he owns the land, okay? But in reality, he does not own the land. All 6 of those elements have to occur for adverse possession to be put in place. If one of these elements is proven in court to not be true, adverse possession will not occur. These examinations that we take to become licensed, they put a lot of emphasis on adverse possession. But in reality, it's a pretty rare thing for all of these elements to be put in place and to work out perfectly. Okay. Another note here, you cannot adverse possess on public land. So like the state of Colorado, if someone starts using the state of Colorado's right-of-way limit, if they go beyond the right-of-way limits, Doesn't matter if they meet all these requirements, they still will not own that land. Okay. You cannot adverse possess on a public entity. I have somewhere the caveats. Thought I wrote them down here. Okay. Refute. All right. The defense against adverse possession. So this is what the landowner A would have to do in court. They could refute any element of adverse possession. So if they can just prove that one of those elements didn't occur, then they're going to win. Okay. The statutory time period, if there's several ways to get around that too. If A was in the military while B was doing this, that time does not count towards the statutory limit. If A was an infant or too young, below the legal age to stop B. So if A owned the land and he's 12 years old, the clock doesn't start for that statutory period until A turns 18. So for B is going to have to do it for the statutory period plus 6 years. If A is not mentally sound, if he's got Alzheimer's, if he's got some other debilitating disease where he cannot leave his house to go and look and see, that also can stop it. And I just said, if A is the government in any way, shape, or form, a city, local, county, whatever, if they're a government entity, B cannot adverse possess on them. Okay. Now this is the big part. What is our responsibility as a surveyor with adverse possession? Again, we don't care who owns this piece of land. All we're there to do is survey the perimeter of A's property. That's all we're there to do. Now, that being said, we can also map out this hedgerow and that fence and the picnic tables, and we can put a note on that plat that says, hey, A, this is your land, and it looks like B's using it. I'm not saying he owns it. I'm just telling you, looks a little suspicious to me. You might want to go get a lawyer to see what's going on there. Okay. We're hired to get the perimeter of A done and notify him or her of what's going on, but we are not responsible. We can't tell A, B owns the land up there, or B doesn't own the land up there. We can't do any of that. We just have to say, we have to notify A of our suspicions. Okay. Does that make sense? This plat does it perfectly. We noted on here, disputed area. There's something going on there. Okay. We went over this. All right. So that was one type of unwritten right. So as I've showed you, the transfer of this area can occur if all 6 elements are met, and there was no deed in writing that says that that's the case. A did not write a deed to B selling him this land, but B now owns the land. So it's an unwritten right. The next type is an implied dedication. This is a gift. You can give something to someone else without actually writing it down. Okay. A lot of you can give a piece of your ranch to the county for open space, let's say. Okay. You don't have to put it in writing, but it can be an implied dedication. As a ranch owner, you could put up a fence, you can build your own little place set here. You can let everyone use the land. Everyone comes from all over the county to go fish in the pond there, or whatever you have. It's just implied that that land was dedicated for public use and then eventually becomes a chunk of that county. Okay. Typically, the county is going to ask for it in writing, though. Okay. So this is all a moot point if that written document is ever transferred from this rancher to that county. Okay. A waiver. This is when you intentionally abandon or relinquish what ordinarily was yours. So that is kind of like an implied dedication, but it's really you're just giving away. You're not really giving it away. You're just your inaction is creating that use for other people. Okay. So this is an action. This is an inaction. You're giving it away in both situations. We'll come back to this one and this one next. Let's go to estoppel first. Estoppel. What is it? So the elements of estoppel are one has to put forth omissions, declarations, words, or actions. So look at this example here. Landowner A and B. B has a pool and he wants to build a pool house. He walks over to A and he says, A, I want to build a pool house. I'm going to have some surveyors coming out here next Wednesday to survey our line. So I know, and I want to make sure that I don't build this pool house on your property. A tells B, oh man, don't hire a surveyor. I know where the line is. Don't even bother. It goes from that tree straight down perpendicular to my line down here. B's all excited. He gets to save $3,000 not paying for surveyors. He says, are you sure, A? A says, oh yeah, don't even bother. No big deal. Our kids play together. They're going to be in that pool house playing in the pool. Don't worry about it. So B's like, all right, man. So he gets the contractors out there and they start building this pool. They put the last nail in the roof of that pool house, and A walks over and he tells B, thanks for building me a pool house. And B's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, our line is actually over here. And you built that pool house halfway over the line, so I get half the pool house. Well, that's not the case, okay? And the reason it's not the case is because B was told specifically by A that that line was over here, not right here. So A essentially lied. He put forth words that told B he doesn't have to hire a surveyor. Okay. Now, let's go on to 2. One's omissions of words has caused a reasonable and foreseeable reliance by another. So A was very convincing when he lied and said the line was over here. Okay. He made B think that he could rely on A's words. That's number 2. Number 3, expenditures otherwise would not have been made. So lying about that line caused B, expenditures otherwise would not have made having known, would not have been made knowing the truth. So if B knew for sure where that line was, he would not have built that house. And then finally, expenditures and damages occurred. So B put forth money hiring contractors to build this. He spent money. He's financially damaged by what happened here. Okay? All because A lied. Now, the key here is A did lie. He has to truly know where the line is. He has to think and know this is the true property line, and he lied and said it was over here. Okay? So A knew better. A knew the line was black over here and told him that it was red right here. okay? And B relied on that and damage has been caused. If this all occurs, A has officially lost this strip of land. That strip of land is going to go to B now. He lied about it. He knew he lied about it, and he caused damage. Now, because of that, he's going to be penalized this piece of land. That's what estoppel is. Now, if A really did think the line was this red line, and he was not lying, that's a different story. Now it's B's problem, because it's B's responsibility to get the survey done properly. Okay? So this all falls on how honest A is. If A really did think it was right here by the oak tree and was really just trying to be nice, then B is in trouble. But if A lies and knows it's somewhere else and tells him it's right here, now it's A's problem. That's the clincher, okay? Does everyone understand this? This can happen with anything. Doesn't have to be pools. It can happen with mailboxes, picnic areas, whatever it is, okay? As long as money was spent by B. So now B owns this land, and there was no deed. There's no written document showing it. Okay. All right. Acquiescence. Acquiescence is the loss of land due to the silence between landowners. So if land is, you don't know where the line is, landowner A and B do not know where the line is between their lands. Okay. But B accepts the fact that A built a fence way over here and B does nothing about it, he stays quiet, then A is going to gain this land over here over time because of B's inactions. So staying quiet and just accepting it is going to cause the line to be this fence line, not this line. The elements, though, the true location has to be in doubt. B and A really don't know where their line is. So when A builds that fence right there, B's like, yeah, that looks good to me. That's fine. And he doesn't do anything. He doesn't tell A, hey, did you get it surveyed? Do you know where the line is? He doesn't question it. He just stays quiet. Boundary location is made visible. So A has to put something up there. He has to put a fence or a hedgerow or landscaping ties, something to tell B, hey, I'm putting the line here now. Active and constructive notice to the adjoining landowners is made. They have to talk about it. They have to communicate. A's going to tell him, hey, I'm putting a fence there up next Thursday. B's like, all right, man, whatever. I don't care. And then the lack of action and silence on B's part is going to solidify this. Okay. The key here is that line, that red line, is not known. They do not know where that's at, neither A or B. If either one of them does know, this does not occur. Nature. You can lose land by erosion or accretion. The key here is gradual. It has to be a slow, gradual movement of land through erosion or accretion in order for land to change. If there was a dam that broke and all the, 52 years worth of erosion occurred in a 48-hour period, that title and land is not lost or gained in that situation because that's a sudden event. It has to occur through gradual, slow motion, either erosion and accretion, in order for land ownership to change in this situation. Okay. All right, and then we'll go to the last two and then we're done. All right, practical location versus unwritten agreement. I find these extremely hard to discern. Practical location. The statement I came up with is, we think it's right here. I don't really know. So let's just put it here. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We think it's right here, right? I don't know. So let's just put it here. What that means is we do not know. The two landowners, A and B, do not know where the line is. Okay. Just like in acquiescence, they do not know that the green, that red dashed line is the true boundary. So what they do is they go and they monument another line between them. That new line, if they both agree to it, is going to become the new boundary line between these parcels. The key here is they do not know where the line is. It is truly unknown. The elements, original boundary is unknown. The newly decided line must be monumented. They have to monument it. It doesn't have to be a rebar. It can be a rock pile. They could plant a cherry tree. It doesn't matter. They have to monument it some way, shape, or form. And all the parties involved must take action showing that they recognize and accept the line that is now in place. If all that occurs, the boundary line is going to move from the red line to the green line. That's practical location. And this red term is going to be the big difference between what we're going to next. So in this one, you truly, A and B do not know where their line is. So they just created a new one and they agree to it. Now, an unwritten agreement is different because they know, or they kind of know, where the old line was. They have a rough idea, and if they hire a surveyor, they can probably figure it out. Okay, it might still be a little vague and there might be some wiggle room, but generally speaking, they know where that boundary line between them is supposed to be, which is this red line. However, they say, let's void that line and make it here. It'd be a lot easier because we already have a white picket fence along this line right here. So let's just say the white picket fence is now our line. They both have to agree to it, and then they can move on. The elements are, the real line is, it is known, but it's pretty vague, and it's not really set in stone yet. Number two, the boundary is in dispute. Because of that vagueness, they don't really know where it is, so they're kind of disputing, like, is it here, is it there? No, I think it's here. No, I think it's there. Okay, so they're disputing it. The resulting boundary needs to be agreed upon by all parties. So it's in dispute. So the way they solve the problem is they say, now it's the white picket fence right here, this green line. The key here, though, the last one, the boundary is discernible. It is possible to be detected. They hire a surveyor and some lawyers, maybe they can figure out where that line is, okay? But it doesn't matter anymore because now the green line is the line. They've agreed to it, okay? How they agree to it is between them. It could be a handshake. It could be a promise. They could put it in writing. If they did it in writing, then it'd be a lot line agreement with documentation. Then it wouldn't be an unwritten agreement. It would be a written agreement. Okay. So these examples, nature, acquiescence, estoppel, unwritten agreement, practical location, waiver, implied dedication, and adverse possession, are all examples of ways you can transfer title from one person to another without having it in writing. Okay. Stuff happens. Nature moves sand. Landowners lie to each other. People use land that's not theirs. People can give away land. People are just, they don't care, and they just quietly accept the fact that that's the new line. There's all kinds of ways that you can give title away to someone else without putting it in writing. Okay. The bottom line, as surveyors, we just have to show the best we can where the perimeter of our subject parcel, our client's parcel lines are, and we have to show all possible encroachments. We have to show those landscaping ties, those white picket fences, those picnic tables, beaten down walking paths, all that kind of stuff that could possibly lead to other people using that piece of land, whether it's rights or ownership. Okay. We don't really care who owns it, but we do have to show the landowner, whoever they may be, what is out there. Okay. And then let them and the lawyers decide who owns it. Does that make sense? All right. I think that's it. I'm sorry I went over, Trent.
No, you're good. Right on.
Yeah. Are
Right
there
on
any
the money.
questions, comments?
I know Summer was going to try to save her, share her screen if that was possible, but
Yeah, I can. Let's see here. Let me just pull up the document. I think that that's fine. It's public. So I'm gonna try to kind of like drill this down as easily. I took screenshots, but I don't know if that's gonna.
Stop sharing, Trent. Maybe that'll.
yeah. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So this is. Where did I put it? Let me pull up. Like, if I'm gonna just pull up a screenshot. Sorry, I also have a client asking me to bid something with no information right now. Okay, so this is. How do I do a screenshot? I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna pull up the photo if it's okay. Share photos. Okay. So this one, I don't know if this is gonna work, but so I don't know if y'all see the grantor and the grantee, the addresses. The grantor is OPEX and the grantee is OPEX.
Yeah.
So this is a construction okay, and it's 6906, and then the grantee 6904. Okay, and then if like 5, 6, and 7, where it's talking about this perpetual easement over and across a portion of, and an easement that shall extend 3 feet from this ridiculous language, item 6.
Go down to those exhibits, A and B.
Yeah, so the exhibits are all it does is show the site plan. It doesn't have any dimensions to anything. These two houses dimension 2 feet from each other. Like say 8/10 from one property line and 9/10 from the other or something. I mean, we have a couple feet between the two. I can let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Can y'all see everything?
Is this an attempt to try to skirt some zoning regulations, building side yards and that type of thing? Because it almost looks like something like
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get away from setback rules.
I think it's a loophole that they're trying to do something like maybe it was different financing and they were trying to let me see if I can pull up another one here. I think that what they were trying to do was, so do y'all see this screen where it's reverse order, 6906, then 6904? Do y'all see that one?
I think it's still the same document up.
Yeah.
It looks identical. It's just reverse, meaning the grantor. So there's two documents that they want referenced. One of them, the grantor is 6906, the grantee is 6904, and then the next one, the grantor is 6904, and the grantee is 6906. Everything else is identical. And so my whole thing is the word perpetual, and that there isn't 3 feet between these. No matter how it's dimensioned, there isn't 3 feet. So I'm like, how are we, like, if we show this, which they want us to show it, it's fine. It's just going to cut through both of these houses. And so it's a little subdivision. So my thing, what I'm trying to just wrap my brain around why somebody would grant themselves. It's like I'm granting myself access to my own backyard through my own fence for a lawnmower to go through. Or so, I mean, it's just like I don't even understand the logic here. But these guys are selling, so it's like, how, I don't know how something like this works. We've never seen anything like this. And I mean, the exhibit, if I could figure out how to show it, all it does is show, it doesn't dimension anything. All it does is show like the site plan of like almost a sketch of the two houses next to each other, which are approximately 2 feet from each other. So I don't understand. I mean, again, like based, going back to what you said and then I really like this, where what is a matter of law and where is a matter of survey. We're just going to show where this thing is, and everyone's going to be potentially encroaching on everybody.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
Yeah, there's a question. The question is the grantor and the grantee are the same? And it says in item 8, the easement shall encumber the grantors until such time that the easement is released. Can he release it on himself? And secondly, if they decide to sue each other, can he be both a plaintiff and a defendant in court?
I know.
Exactly.
He's to sue himself.
Yeah. If I was you, I wouldn't get too tied up in the actual what in the hell's going on here. But like you say, locate where the stuff is on the ground, indicated on the maps, and then let it. If it winds up going into court, I don't know how it can, because both, like say, the defendant and the plaintiff are the same party.
If it was
Unless
me,
some third party gets drawn into it through like a financing type of situation or a potential sale later on.
They're
There's
actually
no harm, no
selling
foul, I
these.
guess.
Well,
Yeah, if it
right.
was-
He's just going to sue himself.
if it
But
was
no,
me, that property line
Mhm.
down the middle, I'd offset it 3 feet each way and put a leader saying per document 21267058 on one of them, and then 21670599 on the other, and call it quits.
Yeah, and just
that's
call it quits. And we're not. And so what they also are asking us to do is to state whether or not it affects the property. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, y'all decide whether or not it affects the property.
And
We're
since
just going to
both-
show you where
and
it
since-
is.
Yeah, and since both parties are the same, bill them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. But that's it. This is why I was so excited about today's course. Is I was like going, okay, I have a feeling that maybe y'all could help with this, because I'm just like, I feel like I'm looping here. I'm like, what am I reading? It's just like this perpetual, pardon the pun, but it's like a perpetual loop. And it's confusing the world out of us. But okay, I mean, that helps. So I'm just gonna, that's what we're gonna do. call it what it is, and they can decide whether or not it affects it. We're not going to put anything of the sort other than just calling it what it is, and they can
Yeah.
figure out how to sue themselves.
Yeah, don't stick your neck out there. Again, what is a matter of law? Let them figure that out.
Yep.
Right. I loved that. I mean, I wrote that in big bold letters. I just absolutely loved that. And I'm gonna make a huge poster. I'm gonna put it all over the place. So we can remind ourselves. That was classic. I love it. This has been so helpful. I literally have, I don't know, 15 pages of notes or something.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Right,
Yeah.
I can give you the PowerPoint to share or whatever if you wanted.
Yeah, no, that'd
That
be perfect.
would, if y'all could, I mean, that would be, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I really, really, really appreciate this.
Yep, I'll throw it in the Dropbox link that goes to
Okay.
Thank
all the
you.
files.
Just
that we
shut
have.
down my computer,
Yep.
but I will I'll attach it.
That's awesome.
I mean, yeah, I'll email it to you to share.
Great as always, Dane. Anybody got questions as pertaining to any of that? That was a great example at the end there too, Summer. Crazy mess.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
I
Well,
got
as
nothing.
always, Trent, thanks for the opportunity, and
Heck
I'll
yeah.
see you.
Yep, I'll see you in
I
48
will see
hours.
you. Yeah, on Wednesday. I
All right.
land in Seattle at like I don't know. I think it was 2:30.
Okay. Yeah, I land at like 11 at night. So perfect.
Okay. Yep. I'm gonna head up then. I won't wait for you.
Right? No, not so much. Love it.
Enjoy your golfing trip.
Heck yeah. Yeah, we'll be off the next week. Yeah. Next coming Monday, I'll be in Florida, doing our big golf trip that we always do. And then we'll go back to back. And then we're off the 26th, and then we have some stuff already set up for April 1st. So got a few weeks out, but I love it. Awesome,
Thank you guys
everybody.
so much.
Of course.
Thank
Have a
you
great
so
week.
much.
Thanks, Dane.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Jerry. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Thank you.